Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Now, I've known Isaac for a couple of years now. We've done a bunch of different things together. I've talked to him about different aspects of business, marketing, and life. But Isaac, for people that don't know you, tell them who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Yeah, Joseph. Well, I mean, we have been wanting to do this interview and this conversation for probably 2 years now, and our schedules just kept getting conflicted. So I'm glad to actually be able to sit down and have a conversation with you today. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas now with my fiance and launching my new business. I specialize in helping public figures optimize and scale their personal brands. I noticed that around 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, after I was in the music industry for about a year on and off, that well, this was pre-COVID, that well, is this going to kill everybody or is this just a common cold kind of thing? And the artist at the time that I was managing doing this record label decided to basically get out of the music industry after COVID started because we were hosting a concert. I was going to fly out to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was in California at the time, and we decided to call that off. And at that moment, I came to the realization that in the music industry, the only way that you can really make money is at scale, and you have to reach hundreds of thousands and millions of people and get millions of streams to really make a solid business. And I didn't want to focus on 360 deals and just, deals that I personally wouldn't take. I think that this is something that if it's not a deal that you would take, you shouldn't offer it. And so I decided to launch my public relations firm, Mashman Ventures, which was what I've been building for the past 4 years. But it created more questions than answers. And so in 2024, a couple months ago, I dissolved my firm officially in public and then decided to launch a consulting firm. And so I work with public figures to optimize and scale their personal brand, whether that be improving the distribution of their IP, their intellectual property, courses, podcasts, books, improving their social media, optimizing it, just small, simple things and tactics and tips that are extremely important for visibility and for credibility. And that's a really quick summary that avoids me going into all of the small details of my childhood.
No, but I love that because I'm thinking about you started out in business, you're doing music, pandemic hits, which changes the whole world, the whole playing field. You look at it as a business owner and go, this is not a model I want to do. So you shift, and for 4 years, you try to do something else, and you're building it, you're growing it, and you get to this point where like, this is not what I want to do. So now you're on your third venture, and people are like, well, wait a minute. Is he quitting? No, this is what entrepreneurship is. It's testing and trying. It's doing new things and then dialing in your message. So I love that. And I also love the fact that you
Mhm.
said about walking away from deals. We were talking about this before the show that sometimes you have to walk away from the deal. And guess what? You're talking to a sales expert and a marketing brand expert. The people that everyone thinks just want your money. We're talking here flat out in the start of the show that there are deals we will walk away from. I've walked away from 5K deals. I've walked away from 10K deals on purpose because they just didn't align with me. So how do you, because I know you're talking about branding. I think this is a good question to start with. How do you help people understand how to position themselves as a brand, as a person? Do you want them to go like way wide, or do you think they should niche down? What type of thoughts do you have on that?
Excellent question. I love that. The podcasts I've been getting on lately, Joe, have all been so tactical and so specific. And I'm absolutely adoring all of the guests or all of the hosts that are inviting me on because we're able to talk about this. And if I could go back really quick momentarily, I actually had more than three businesses. MCG, which is Mashman Consulting Group for short, is my seventh or eighth endeavor. And that's kind of crazy to think because in high school, I was doing a clothing line, got into network marketing. I was in three different companies, four different times. Phenomenal experience. I recommend it. But then from there, I wanted to post products on my website and do some weird drop shipping thing that I didn't really do much with. And then from there, that's when I got into the record label. But I also delved into, for example, traditional media services like podcast management. And then I realized that I hated the done for you kind of service. I'd much rather do it with you and enable you or delegate. That's my gift than to actually sit down and manage it. Whereas I could have a virtual assistant or anybody that I train do that task. So Mashman Consulting Group is the ultimately the culmination of seeking clarity. And why saying seeking clarity, every business wasn't that I was pivoting, and the pivot between Mashman Ventures and Mashman Consulting Group was actually more of a lateral pivot than a change of niches because I went from this is a public relations firm offering consulting services to this is a consulting firm offering consulting services. So I was effectively just changing the brand, changing the name, and taking the very best of our approach. And I think that that's important to distinguish because people think they have to start over. And this leads into the next question with people have this misunderstanding about personal branding, and they believe that anytime they create a new social media account or a new website, they're creating a new personal brand when you have actually been building the same personal brand from the moment you were born. And this is a huge philosophical difference between me and the next guy and, my training, because most people would take that practical, this is the media vehicle, you have a new personal brand. When every single time I changed and pivoted, people still followed me for me. And that's the thing. You have to position yourself as a public figure if you want to land more deals. Now, how does this work? It's pretty simple. You position yourself as a public figure, you get into more places where other people can edify you, i.e., podcast interviews, because this is a form of edification, whether or not a podcast host wants to admit it. You are edifying your guest, unless the guest looks like a complete fool, which hopefully
Yeah.
I don't, right? And then from
No, you're
there,
good. You're good.
you get more people, you build your personal brand, you build your credibility, and you are that public figure that can be trusted. And it lowers the action threshold it takes for somebody to work with you in comparison to having to fight for every single deal.
No, I love that because I'm sitting back looking at my social media public career. So I've been in sales 20 years. Everyone, when I first started doing it, everyone knew I was in sales. I was also doing short form writing, fantasy writing, just like because I was into that type of thing. Then I got
Mhm,
into the 150K podcast because people started saying, "Hey, help me," and I took that for a while. And then I just, like I told you, I rebranded to the Joseph Graham Show because I didn't want to just get niched into because my podcast was going different. I didn't want it just to be business and sales. I wanted to be able to talk to people like I just had someone on that talked about education and health and just different stuff. And then as a brand, my name, because I'm wanting to get more stages and stuff, made more sense to brand my name instead of hiding behind the 150K.
mhm,
But looking at that, I've had people follow me through the whole thing. And I've
mhm.
also just adapted and grown. And that's kind of like what you've done. I've adapted, I've changed some stuff. I said, hey, this worked, that didn't work. Cool. And I started to move. But I think your brand, and I love how you positioned this, your brand is not your business name, your brand is you. And the
Yes.
businesses that you own are different things. Because a lot of the most successful people own multiple businesses. Elon's not known for Tesla, just Tesla. He's known for everything he does. And I
Mm.
think positioning that's key. So how do you help someone position their brand? Because a lot of people have really good ideas. They're maybe really good in their thing, but they don't know how to brand it or how to make it to where it is. Like, because some people are like, you go to their page and they're just only business. And there are people are like, you see everything. And there's like kind of that balance I think that you need to have. But I just
Mhm.
wanted your thoughts on it.
Well, if you only post about business, you lose the personal part, and if you only focus and post about your personal life, you lose the credibility and the professional side of things, right? So, if I'm going to want to find the best neurosurgeon and all they do is post about their family and post about, trips and such, there's nothing that tells me they know what they're doing in terms of neurosurgery. And that might be a radical example because obviously you have certifications, but in a sales example, if you're in sales and the only thing you talk about is your life and your family and that you went to Firehouse Subs for lunch, well, cool. I might be able to relate with you on the fact I too like Firehouse Subs and I like hot sauce, right? But that's not going to be enough for me to actually decide to work with you and trust you and put my faith in you and hire you. And so, Joe, if we were to take the phrase personal brand and break it down the middle, you have personal on the left side, which is who you are, every single interest, every single aspect of your story. And then you have the brand side, which is your career, your profession, the way you make money. And whenever you're building yourself online, you need to do for every two business posts, one personal post. That is the best ratio I've come up with to date of what people need to adopt. So if I'm doing a post about a trip that I'm going on, I could do another post that is now about business or about personal branding. And it's important to not, I'm never going to tell somebody to micro niche down. I think niching and micro niching are so different because you, as being a salesperson, you are a sales trainer. You are not somebody who I only work with doctors' offices to improve their sales. That is an
Right.
example of micro niching down. It limits your market and you're making more competition because you're working with all the doctors' offices in your area to fight for each other's clients and prospects. And so if you were to say, no, I work with X, Y, and Z, or let's say white collar businesses to increase their sales. So now you work with dentists, doctors, and lawyers. Now you are niched, but not micro niched. But then you can have the public appeal by saying, hey, I work with these people, but these are some tactics that apply way outside of just white collar business that you can use to improve your sales. So now you have a wider appeal. And there's this very tight rope that you have to walk between being that subject matter expert and only being an expert in like such a small, diverse area. And I'm usually against that. I'd rather cast the net and maybe pick through it than to be the person who only casts the line and hope I get something, even if the fish is bigger, for example.
Yeah, yeah. No, because in the beginning I was like way too broad because like I know how it's just like, oh, I help set up sales teams for businesses. But now I've niched it down to
Yeah.
two things. I help B2B professionals get a selling system in place so that they can become President Circle winners and make a crap ton of money. And I'm
Yeah.
saying crap ton, normally I say shit ton of money. So I changed the verbiage. And then I help entrepreneurs set up repeatable income for 10,
Mhm.
20, 30K months through my selling system. Two different groups because they need different things. The entrepreneur normally wants me to set up a sales team for them. The salesperson wants to be the badass salesperson I was. Two different groups, but it's still a lot more narrow than I help build selling systems. So I'm working on bringing that and dialing it in. I think so many times we get so caught up in, oh, I have to have it perfect or set up instead of letting enough people know that we can do it and keep showing up. I like your 2-to-1 ratio because I think it's easy sometimes to get one way or the other. Like you see the one page, they're always business, always business, always business, or always pleasure, always pleasure, always pleasure. And I think it's just people are. I want to ask you this: when you're dealing with a lot of people, are a lot of people afraid to show their true side?
Yes, and I think that just, the time that we're recording this show, this is coming out in September around that time. But just the other day, there was an assassination attempt on, Donald Trump, President of the United States. And that right there is a perfect kind of leeway into this because when I first started out, I was very political growing up. I was very, very political in school. I would love to debate, but then getting into business and building out my personal brand, I took this decision to let me not talk about politics and religion because I viewed it as opportunities to divide an audience. But then I realized that that is a weak-minded approach because I'm not saying you need to be completely divisive and say something so radical. I don't even post my true beliefs sometimes because they're a lot of times more radical than what I'm publicly showing. But there is a degree, again, balance that you can only find of saying, you know what, I don't agree with this. And there were a lot of people recently where they were saying that, oh, I wish the bullet moved, right? And I want you guys listening to understand that we're not here to talk about politics all podcasts. So if you're somebody who normally turns this off, stick with us for a second because you'll understand kind of the direction that we're going to. But there were some people who were like, I wish the bullet was an inch over. And me, I view that as, wow, number one, we have narrowly avoided, in my opinion, civil war. And the second thing is, you're talking about the attempt and the murder of a real human, regardless of your approach and your belief with him. And it's not like this guy is like some Adolf Hitler figure who's killed millions of people. That's not, you can't compare it. And then the third thing is you're also basically approving of political violence and approving of something that goes against the Constitution of the United States, right? And this doesn't matter if this is the United States, Canada, France, the UK, or Uganda. If there's a constitution in place, we need to follow it. And so I myself have made several statements that might appear divisive, but have also gained me a lot of respect for a lot of people, and they have gained a lot of respect for me because I have said, no, I do not approve of this, and I am willing to voice my opinion. I made those couple of posts over the span of a couple of days. I'm leaving it be. I'm not trying to be some political figure, but an expression of belief shows courage and shows strength. And so when you're building out your personal brand, sometimes you want to leave those things and not talk about them, but other times I find it necessary. And then I even made somebody commented on my post and said, I guess I'm in that boat. And that post was saying that I personally believe that anybody who believes that the bullet should be moved over is guilty of treason. And he's like, I guess I'm in that boat. And I said, absolutely. And I said that I am formally retracting any offer for Mashman Consulting Group to work with you or your business. I'm not saying, oh my God, you're a horrible person. I'm saying that I do not approve of this. Just like you said that I'm not going to take your 5K deal today, right? And having that backbone and building yourself is what enables public figures to be built. Because we don't need more people to just be creators online. We need leaders who are creating.
When it comes down to this, like in my post, I was like, to me, it wasn't who was shot at, it was who was saying it. If it was in reverse and Biden, because he's the president right now, got shot, and someone on the right said that, I would say the exact same thing. It's based on principles in my head here.
Yeah.
In the US, we have free speech. You can say whatever you want. You can say mean things about both of them. I do not care. Just you don't cross these lines. And I think everyone wants, you need principles. If you don't have the
Yes.
principles for that, then how can I trust you to deliver on something else? If you don't have the principles to walk away from a deal because someone isn't aligned with you in a way that isn't right, then you have no integrity. So what we're talking here is about integrity and who you are as a person, how you show up. Like we both agree, murder is wrong. You shouldn't wish anyone dead. Period. That's just not the right thing to do. There are a few exceptions, but what we're talking about here right now is a different ball game. And I think so many times people are so afraid because they're like, what will happen if I say this? Well, you understand, you'll gain, like you said, more people that will respect you for taking a stand. Even if they don't agree with you on it, they'll respect that you actually are a principal because guess what? Now I know Isaac, when he says he's going to do something, it's going to follow through because when it wasn't an easy decision, he did that. Or like with me, when I walked away from that deal and I walked away from deals before, he's going to take care of me because
Yes.
he's not going to just follow the money. He's going to live by his principles of what feels right and what can be delivered. Because at the end of the day, that goes back to our brand. Who are we as people? How do we show up? Who do we help? And sales and marketing, like I mentioned before, we get a bad name. Everyone says we just want to take money. But in reality, true sales is simply this: walking them home and fulfilling what marketing drew them in to do. That's at least my thought on it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And I think that not being afraid, because we're in this strange era to where it's easy to say something online behind a keyboard and not have any repercussions. Now, I wasn't really even alive in the era to where if you trash talk somebody, you took it up in the schoolyard. But I will say that growing up, I had one kid that kept bullying me. And he was somebody who was in my friend group. And so it's like you have somebody in your friend group who's trash talking you all the time. And I officially, it reached a bullying point, and I was like, man, if you keep talking, I'm gonna put your braces down your throat. And he never said one more thing to me. And I think that violence is a tool that needs to be managed. You have plenty of tools in your garage that you don't use all the time. But I think also as a man, you have that capability of being maybe that harsher person or even working with a client, thinking about how this transpires into business. If you think about certain clients and you say you need to do this and they don't do it, their results will suffer and they will possibly blame you. So it is up to you to go up to them and say, no, you need to do this. I told you when we started that there would be expectations for both parties. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
about even like some consultations I've done recently that I need to follow up with them today because they have not executed everything that I told them to do and that they said they would do. So you have to take a stance there and be principled even in your delivery. And by building yourself as a public figure and positioning yourself, Joe, you're increasing the expectation. So you're lowering the action threshold, but you're increasing the expectation of what they are thinking about what they'll receive, right? The receivables, the deliverables. And a little bit of a high caliber subject, but I mean, if you have 1,000 positive reviews or you have one positive review, the expectations are widely different.
I think it comes back down to principle. I did grow up in the day. If you said something, it would be in the because I'm 47, so I'm a little bit older than you. So like
Yeah.
we did have that, but I think it was Peterson said this that you should be a dangerous man because if you're not dangerous, you're not showing strength or controlling the monster, so to speak. You're just you have no power. And when you set stuff up, I'm thinking about it again in my career. I had a guy say he was going to want to buy followers. I said, don't do it. If you do, I won't work with you. He bought
Hmm.
I stopped because I have to stick to my principles because
Absolutely.
I don't want someone saying they're following my systems or what I'm doing and then go out and do all this stuff and then it gets associated with me because now that's going to affect my brand as well. I think so many times people are so afraid that that one deal is it. But I think this will come into this. If you have multiple deals that you're working on, if you've prospected enough, if you've marketed enough to bring in enough people, you don't have to rely on that one deal. When it hurts you is when you have one or two little deals and you're there. And
Yeah.
if you don't do this, well, how am I going to pay for stuff? Well, that's where your true integrity comes in because, yeah, maybe that money would come in at that point. But guess what? What's going to happen down the road? Your integrity is gone, your alignment's gone, and your brand's gone. You can't do that.
That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I think a host has ever delivered on a show that I've been on, that I need people to go and rewind that. And as a guest, I'm saying that you need to rewind this. Normally, it's the other way around when people are doing interviews, but like that literally is the secret to lowering your stress. because there have been multiple moments, especially launching something new. You have a lot of stuff to do. You have a lot of expenses coming out. It doesn't matter if you're making $100 million or $1 million or $100. There are still expenses and things that you need to pay for. It's all relative. And having one deal, I was thinking about this earlier. I have like a couple of deals, particular, that I would really love to close that are with high quality people. But if I had somebody approach me today and say, "Hey, can you work with me?" and it was somebody that I didn't agree with, it's like if an Italian mobster said, "I could pay you 50 grand to work with me," and I'm thinking that 50 grand would be nice. That doesn't mean that I should get in bed with the mafia, right? But if you have that constant flow and those conversations, and this goes back to treating, as entrepreneurs, it's easy to treat this like a hobby. And it's like you need to actually have that influx and that discipline to say, no, I need to be making 10 contacts every day, or I need to have multiple deals that are fluctuating so I can go to scale, especially if you don't have a team built. So for myself, as an example, as I scale MCG over the next decade, we'll have 500 consultants that are able to do deals by themselves, and the company will naturally float profit based off a commission structure. But until I have those consultants built, I'm relying on myself and then what, the COO and several other people to start sending referrals and start driving business. And so it's like being willing to talk about these things are what really would help people, because these are the aspects that I wish I knew when I started that nobody had the guts to talk about because they wanted to talk about fluff guru, go ahead and feel motivated. But no, you need a influx of prospects and conversations to keep the money flowing. And then from there, you can reach those levels, because if one deal falls through, you have five more to take its place.
And I think that's the biggest thing I see in business. There's two problems I have the most of. They don't have enough prospects, or they don't have a follow-up system in place when they get their first no. And if you can fix both those bookends, the rest is easy
Mm,
because you know your system, you know
mhm.
your processes, but we let people go out that we just didn't answer their questions and we don't have enough people coming in. But you have to do what you said here, which I love. You have to have your principles when you start, your foundations when you start, so that as you grow to 500, now you can go back to when you get those sales guys that are trying to push the edges. Because I've been in sales for years. I know there are sales guys that push the edges. We can go up and say, hey, no, Tim. And I made Tim up. You can't, you have to be integrous in this. You can't push them forward. You can't tell them we can deliver something we can't do. And then if he pushes back, you'll look, dude, when I started this business, it was on me and I had to walk away from money on purpose because
Mhm.
my integrity is more important than that dollar. And that builds your cultural foundation. So no, I love that. I think that's huge.
Yeah, and then I would also love to talk about maybe the confidence, but between a salesperson and the deliverables too, because you have to believe in the product you're selling. And what I did a couple of years ago in network marketing, part of the reason why I got out of the industry was not only that I wanted more control, but it was that I never truly 100% believed in any of the products. And knowing that I didn't have that belief, how could I put my best foot forward? And so I'm thinking about recently, I made a post last week, which I posted it everywhere, because whenever you're making a social media post, you should be diversifying where you're putting it so you have multiple algorithms, better or for worse, promoting it. And the reason I say for better or for worse is on Threads, which I haven't spent much time developing an audience there, or not an audience per se, but a culture, right? Because the audience you build determines the culture that is kind of established around your brand. And I did this post about, like, I've been featured in Forbes, I've been featured in Entrepreneur, I've been flown out, I've done these things. I think it's time to start flaunting a little bit and showcasing that you can go from a nobody to a somebody, right? Because it's not like I came out with this skyscraper view my first day in business. That's not what it took. And I had so many people comment on that and being like, what do you even do? What is this? Another hustle bro guru mindset. Who are you? And I'm having to look at these comments and say, I have that side of me that's like, screw you. Okay, I don't care. But the other side of me that I cannot ignore is, what am I delivering? And I went through and I'm like, okay, improving the distribution of IP, improving a social media, launching a book, improving and getting on the speaker circuit. All of these different things are things that people pay for and pay good money for. And I cannot let somebody on the internet say that, oh, all of those things are fluff word and I'm convincing people of spending their money with me. No, there are deliverables. I have faith in those deliverables and I can see results that are verified. And so having that confidence in what you're selling and what you're doing, I think is quintessential. The same thing with building your personal brand, having the faith and the confidence in yourself to put yourself out there.
100%. Like in sales in general, confidence sells everything. And I have a rule. I have to believe in it 100%. And I think I might have told you the story before, but I'll go there super quick. I sold a doctor over $800,000 in oil and gas investments, made $25,000 in 7 minutes because of the confidence I had in the project because I thought the wells were going. Once I knew the wells weren't working, I left the job. I
Mm,
literally quit the job because I couldn't integrity wise, do it. Now, when I was selling before, I thought it was working. They told me it was working. When I found out the truth, I left the job, went through hell, I was on food stamps, working 2 jobs, trying to come back from actually making really good money because my integrity was more important than what it was. But things
Damn.
happen for you. You know what happened? I became a 5-time President's Circle Award winner for a Fortune 50 company. Like, that's not by chance because your
Yeah.
principles and what you stand for and what you do are key. And then the other thing is if they don't know on that platform, maybe we just need to explain it more, do it in a different way that they understand this is legitimate, this is real, this is what I've proven. I think the problem is we have too many of the fake Lambo boys and the fake follower buyers that when you say,
Mhm.
hey, I was featured here and it was a legitimate feature, not a paid feature, they're like, oh, are you for real? And it's just building that credibility. But dude, I've known you for years. You've been consistent. You show up each and every day. You help your clients. You do the things you need to do. And we're always going to have haters. There's always going to be people that are there that aren't there. And I fluctuate both. It's the same way with you because there's times I just want to say, dude, you have no fucking idea what I went through to get to where I'm at. Then there's other times like, you know what? Please hate. You're going to bring more people along. They're going to see me, and then I'm going to help them, and then you're going to complain about them too. And so it's a dynamic. But I hear what you're saying.
And I never thought that in my lifetime as a kid, seeing the Forbes magazine on the stand in Publix, I'd be an adult and I'd be quoted on the website, but then I would not care that I was quoted on the website because other people have ruined that credibility. Because there have been moments and like, me getting into the public relations space, I didn't leave it because of the negative labels, but I did leave it because I felt like there was a better way forward. However, if I would have stayed in the public relations space and continued building Mashman Ventures, or I could have kept the business and pivoted and called it and rebranded it, I didn't want to go through all that. But if I did, I would have still had to fight the negative connotation of these gurus that are like paying for press or paying for podcasting or like a lot of podcasts have appearance fees now. Like there's several big name entrepreneurial shows that charge $3,500 plus for an appearance fee. And that in of itself, if you are legitimate, the podcast should be paying you, especially if like you are this public speaker that's supposed to be getting paid $10 to $25,000 for an appearance and you're paying to go on a show. You're effectively lying to yourself and lying to whoever's paying you for that 10 grand to come out. And it's quite ridiculous to think about the instant gratification, and sales is a lot like this. It's like you get Napoleon Hill in The Law of Success, the book that was the precursor to Think and Grow Rich. He has an entire chapter on debt and saving. And he says that a lot of times you'll make the money. You'll make, like, I made $40,000 and I immediately knew where I was spending it. So the money was gone as soon as I made it. And it's like those habits really add up. And I feel like this is a conversation on so many different avenues, but they're all things that need to be talked about because they're not sexy. Like it's not sexy to think, oh, let me put my money into a different fund or let me put my money elsewhere or let me not spend every dollar I make. Um, and it takes discipline.
Success is boring. I teach this. Like literally, success is boring. It's doing the right things over and over, knowing the end result. The things that make people successful normally aren't sexy. They're normally
Yeah.
being consistent every day, building the business, doing the thing. Do you know there's so many businesses out there that the boomers are retiring that are established businesses that someone could just go buy and plug and play and make money, but they're
Mhm,
not sexy. They're like lawn care services or
mhm.
window clean service or this stuff that no one wants to do because they don't give them the big sexy appeal, but they're
They're
established businesses that can
recession
do stuff.
proof.
Yeah. The
They're
recession proof, you're
recession
always
proof.
going to need it. And I think the other thing you mentioned there that I loved was you can't it doesn't matter what anyone else says because at the end of the day, they don't get involved. You're building the life that you want to live. If you're truly an entrepreneur, if you're truly a world changer, disruptor, whatever term you want to put in there, we're oddballs. We don't think like normal people. I can't go sit on the couch and just work my 9 to 5 and sit on the couch and watch football anymore. I used to, but I can't do it anymore. It just doesn't fit for me. So we look differently at things. So we're going to go and create and push and ruffle some feathers. It's okay.
Mhm.
I know I'm going to disrupt and make people that have given up on life or aren't as happy or haven't gotten that hope ignited pissed off. But I also know this, and you do the same. I'm also going to find the Isaacs and the Joes that are looking for something, and they're going to look and see, holy shit, Joe's from a corn or a farm community in Michigan that shouldn't have done shit, and he's doing all this stuff. Isaac is from where you're from Florida, and now he's in a skyscraper in Little Rock. And if those guys can do it, then I have a hope or I have a chance. And that's my thing. Because I want to help people wake up to a life they love living. No rules. What do you want to do? And here's the crazy thing, because I teach people this sometimes too. Now that's funny. I don't care if you want to be a multimillionaire. I don't care if you want to make 200,000 a year. I don't care if you want to make 100,000 a year, but do all this fun stuff with your family because it makes you happy and you hike through Europe and you just don't pay the bills. There's no rules. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to be successful. What success is what makes you happy and you wake up to every day. That's my
Mhm.
thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on that? Because I wanna pick your brain there. Because again, I'm not against money. You've seen what I do. I like doing cool shit, but
Well, I don't know if going from Florida to Little Rock is necessarily the successful flex that you probably thought in your mind. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Little Rock, and this is now my home that I'm working again, and Little Rock has a negative connotation with it too, with the crime. It's like top 10 most dangerous city, but you don't see on the news this beautiful view. You don't see the beautiful river and the Arkansas River running through it, or this historical church and chapel that I'm looking at through my window, or the airport. Like you don't see those things on the news because again, happiness doesn't sell. It's sadness, it's sex, it's things that are divisive, it's things that are ideas, emotions. And I mean, what's the percentage? 80% of sales is emotion based. And again, you have to have principles so you don't sell somebody that they don't need or sell somebody something they don't need. Now, in terms of my definition of success, I haven't even tried thinking about coming up with my own definition. Um, Asking like my why is why not? Like, why wouldn't I? My purpose is to live up to my potential in all areas of life. Like it's not some buttercup, I want to do this to change the world kind of answer. It's not. That's not what motivates me. That's not how I'm wired. I'm motivated and wired by the dark side more than anything. So all these negative comments, I'm like, all right, cool.
Mhm.
I'm going to remember you and then go to your comedy club and buy it up in the future 20 years from now, and you're still going to be performing on the same shitty stage. That is what motivates me. That is my energy. The idea of having consultants that are extremely successful and making money and putting food on their table, that also motivates me. But I'm motivated by that close connection, not by this external savior complex. I tried to at one point, and I realized that that just didn't get me anywhere close mentally to where I wanted to be. Now, Earl Nightingale has the best definition of success I've ever heard, which is success is the progression or progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So the school teacher, and in his audio, The Stranger's Secret, which I believe everybody should go listen to. It's on YouTube, it's on SoundCloud. You should download it. You should buy a vinyl off of eBay. I have multiple vinyls of this audio recording because of how good it is. It's 35 minutes thereabout. I've listened to it dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times at this moment. And he says that a school teacher who wants to be a teacher is a success.
Mhm.
The millionaire who is a millionaire because he wants to be is a success, right? And I think that in my own life, in my own terminologies, when I was younger, one of the mistakes I made was thinking that because somebody wasn't wanting to be rich or somebody that wasn't wanting to be famous, they were not a success. That was coming from an arrogant standpoint as this young entrepreneur. I do
Mhm.
not view them as a success, but if they view themselves as a success, then I will respect that. I will not like to change places with them, but I will respect that they are happy and content with what they are doing, and we need more of that. But in my own life, my driving success decade from now perspective is going to be to, instead of being in the skyscraper as a tenant, owning the skyscraper. Instead of being the person who is, you know, locally here, I will have multiple properties. I'll have multiple houses. I'll be able to have the mansion on the St. John's in Jacksonville, the mansion on the Arkansas River in Little Rock, and the skyscraper penthouse in Miami. Like there are so many levels and facets of it, and I have no issue admitting those things and saying those things again. And that goes down to when you're building out your personal brand, not being afraid of speaking about what you actually want, because that's what you'll get more of.
Well, I love that because there's a few things I heard, and we are alike in certain things. So I do love helping people get those aha moments, just because I'm a coach. That's kind of my heart with it. But if I'm proving something, if you tell me I can't do something, look out. If you say I can't achieve something, I am the guy that. And my buddy asked me this once: "Do you love winning more or hate losing?" And I hate losing. Like
Same.
you tell me I can't do something, I can channel that. And I think Grover talked about the channeling that dark energy. Please tell me I can't win. Please tell me there's not a way to do this, and I will beat you 4 times over. And it's just because of that whole. I think it's because of how I grew up. I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. I grew up as the poor kid. I grew up as the kid having to go to the yard sales to get the stuff. So now I'm like, no, I want nice things. And have I gotten to where I want to be completely yet? No, but I'm grateful for being in the moment. I think that's my thought on it. How do you balance it? Because I know a lot of people are like, I have big fucking dreams. I do. I have really big, crazy dreams of stuff I want to do. And if I look at my 19-year-old self, I'm super proud of me because from where I was at 19 to now, I've accomplished a lot of stuff. People say I'm super successful, but now I'm looking at my potential. I'm like, I got a long way to go. How do you balance that? Or do you not even balance it at all?
Ask me in a couple of years from now, frankly, because that's one of those things where I don't think that balance is necessary. I don't think balance exists. I think it can in a perfect world, but we're not in a perfect world. And I think that there should be a degree of appreciation and building from a positive energy, but I've always seen more success and more growth spurts in those moments where I have an enemy. And that has been, and if you think about Henry Ford building the car, right? And building the first engine. It wasn't a matter of I want to build like the greatest automobile kind of thing. It was I have an enemy and that enemy is transportation. There's no way to go from point A to point B. There's a better way of doing this. There is an enemy which creates the drive for a solution. And all of these inventions and engineering problems and things are ultimately this pursuit for a way better. And having that dark energy is a pursuit to where now somebody doesn't say that thing anymore. And it's interesting because if you get to that point to where it is indisputable, your success or whatever, like I have some people in high school that I remember trash talked me back then, but have come back and followed me. And I haven't followed them back. And I'm not saying this out of ego. I'm saying this like I haven't because I remembered. I'm not going to block you or remove you from following me, but I'm not following you back because I remember what you said back then.
Hmm.
But then now that they're on my side, now there's another person who says, no, you can't get to that next level. And so it's just this progressive pursuit that I don't think you'll ever fulfill. The same thing as your potential, you'll never fulfill and reach that. And that is why I believe now that I'm entering into this next stage of maybe there is a need for a spiritual or a religious higher power to allow me to be fulfilled in other areas because I will not be able to be fulfilled in these areas, but it will keep me going and keep me motivated. And that's an interesting subject that I think a lot of entrepreneurs are turning to God or turning to religion to give them this sense of peace that they cannot find in this grind hustle and this grind culture.
Well, because the grind culture will burn you out. It's not sustainable if you don't have, believe me, I've been in the sales world for years. I've done the grind hustle culture. Like I've gone from 7 to 9, boom, 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 do the thing, Wolf of Wall Street, all that stuff. But you have to allow yourself to understand that there are times when you need to rest or you need to recharge, whatever that is for you. So like you'll see me in my content, I walk a lot. Does that mean I'm
Yeah.
taking like 5 hour walks? No, I'm taking an hour here or a half hour here, or I'm doing something. I'll go hike or I'll go do kickboxing and I'll take a set time. That's my time for recharge. And then I go back. Or like this weekend, I watched a TV show and I don't watch TV shows a lot, but there's a show I was interested in and I didn't feel guilty because I wasn't working my business at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. But there are other times when I know it's grind mode and I'm building, I'll work 7 days a week. I don't care. I'll get things done. I don't think it's balance. I think it's knowing what to do with your time, where you're at, and
Mhm.
what you're doing. And on the spiritual thing, we all go through it. So here's the question I'm going to throw at you because I was raising Judeo Christian values and belief systems and all. And then I just started challenging them recently about 5 years ago. Because if you don't challenge what you believe, is it really your belief or are you
Yeah.
just been told something that you accepted? And again, I'm going through this whole process and now I'm finding out what is it that I really believe instead of, well, this is what I was told, this is what I was supposed to do. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's an entrepreneurial thing too. Because I'm not good at just saying this is what you have to do.
Yeah, and this is actually a chance for me to talk about something I don't think I've ever publicly really discussed in detail so much. But my mom was raised by my grandparents when she was younger as Jehovah Witnesses, but my grandparents never really by the time I was in the picture, that was a decade ago. Like it was not something that was a sticking standpoint. And my mom also saw the hypocrisy growing up, and they never really celebrated Christmases or holidays because that was against the JW belief. And I think my grandparents went through that really weird spell. I don't even know why. I wish I could ask and be like, why? Why do you guys even do that? Um, but aside from that, my mom didn't really raise me in any idea of church or any religion until she remarried to my stepdad, and his family were Protestant Baptists. And so that was a situation where I started going to church with them and started, going and not really knowing why, but just showing up because, well, hey, it was good, it was fun, as a kid. But then you enter into your teenage years of rebellion, and you start thinking, man, you're dragging me to church, but you're a hypocrite at home. And then that created one stage and one divide. And I think that every single person who's been raised in religion goes and does this. Is the same reason why the Amish, they have their kids as they mature, leave into the world and see how it is. And a lot of times they come back because they see all of the crap. And my big thing over the past couple of years, Joe, especially the past 2 years, not having any activity in church or not having any, never been an atheist, but one of those more agnostic than, a firm like this is my belief on fire for Christ kind of thing, but has been okay, there are three major Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Okay, so then you have to think about the idea of the branch between Catholicism and Protestant, right? There's a massive difference there with some massive beliefs, but where did that stem from? And asking those difficult questions and reevaluating beliefs, because then when you go into it and you realize that a lot of these religions say the same exact thing, and then you go and listen to Islam, which as an American, you think to yourself, there's no way I could ever convert to that, right? But then you go and listen and you're like, crap, in some ways this makes more sense. But then this other religion makes more sense. And so, but then there's faith. And what is faith? Faith is the belief in the unseen, right?
Mhm.
And so that's a process that I'm really kind of intrigued to see what I wind up with over the next decade. And it's something that I don't think I will come up to a solution with for another couple of years at least. And I believe that having a backbone in religion and having that is definitely something more people need to start adopting and coming back to. But then there's also this question of, I can tell that I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson lately because I've been quoting him quite a bit. And you quoted him earlier, but he said in a interview that he heard an interesting approach, which was religion is quintessential for a degree of civilization until civilization no longer needs it. So you need religion to establish the ethics and the morals and the
Mhm.
main principles of our society to where you do not kill, you do not lie, you do not rape, you do not do these things. But then once you get that down to where everybody knows that that's the what mankind is, maybe religion dies, maybe God dies. And I think that if anything, the past decade and the past 20 years have showed us that we probably need faith into higher power more than ever.
Well, it's funny because I'm like looking, not funny, but I'm looking at my generation. I'm Gen X, right? So we were the ones that are pushing against this because our parents would chase us to church and do all this stuff and have all these rules. And then we have the next gen, but the new gen, I think it's called Gen Z, the younger ones, like my son's age. A lot of them are starting to actually go back into like even some of the older stuff like Catholicism or other things because of the fact that they're looking for structure, they're looking for hope. Because as men, and I'm using
Mhm.
all men in general, a lot of times they're not getting the support or whatever that they need.
Yeah.
But religion is a way, could be Islam, could be whatever, I don't care, whatever one you want to put in there. It's a structured support, which gives them rules, which gives them guidelines, which gives them almost a you've become a man, you're part of this group, this thing. And I think that goes into a deeper thing that for thousands of years, there was a rite of passage. You knew when you became a man, you
Yes.
knew when you did. And now here in the US, for sure, there's not. There's so much confusion and all. And I think, and I only speak for men because I'm not a woman. I can't speak for a woman. I'm not gonna pretend I speak for a woman. But as a man, I think that community and that becoming who like part of the brotherhood is
Mhm.
such a huge thing, which goes back to our native traditions or our ideas or our thoughts for thousands of years. And I think there's that whole I think it's a circle almost. Like it's just going to keep being a circle because it's going to fluctuate, like you said. It's going to go. We're going
Yeah.
to push against it because it's too hard. Then we're going to go spiritual. Then we're going to go back, and it's just that circle that keeps going around. Because life is so crazy and different.
Well, the economy is the same way. Everything in life is cycles. You have, winter, spring, summer, fall. It's like you have
That you're
all of
going to
these
sing
cycles.
there.
It goes in 24 hours. It goes in 365 days. The planets have their own rotational cycles. Everything is a cycle here. I mean, life and death, childhood. And I think that women especially, and this is why I believe we need more public figures and we need more people who can step up and talk, because right now we have the same talking head entrepreneurs, the same talking head politicians, the same talking head people. And
Mhm.
once you get past that and you start, no, I'm a real person who has done something real that has climbed and crawled my way up. It's just going to be another cycle because down the road, you're going to eventually be in the place that we're viewing these people now. So it's like you might not be Tony Robbins today, but a decade from now, you could be the next Tony Robbins and be in that. Same with Alex Hormozy. 5 years ago, nobody who knew who he was, but now give him another 24 months, people will start to view him as this washed up entrepreneur, just like they started doing to Gary Vaynerchuk. Because Gary is no longer that like hot new thing, and that sets in. And so we need that new cycle of people, and maybe, just maybe, Joe, we can get to a level and a degree of consistency with quality leaders and quality public figures that can start progressing it forward. But you're 100% right in terms of there is no rite of passage for man anymore. As a woman, you grow up and you go and start have your menstrual cycle, and that is like your rite of passage into womanhood by many regards. I mean, that is like the rite of passage. As a man, it's like, yeah, your balls drop, but it's like, what else
Yeah,
is the
that's it.
next thing? You're like there's nothing else that a man can look at and say, wow, I'm a man now. And that's a problem because that lack of community, that lack of connection, that lack of discipline. And that's why when I was growing up in Boy Scouts, I appreciated it so much when it was Boy Scouts, not scouting some, no, like men need other men and other father figures who can whoop their ass in line. And that's something that we're missing. That now it's like my businesses are named after me because I want my kid and my son to take up the family business. That is where I think we need to go back to.
And I agree. I think men learn doing things together. Men learn in communities. We sat around campfires for thousands of years telling stories, or in bars or ale
Mhm.
houses, whatever you want to call it, or meeting halls. That's how it worked. And we've taken that away. We start to say that there's no distinction between men and women. Why don't we just start distinguishing the great gifts both bring? It doesn't eliminate
Absolutely.
anything from saying women are better at this, men are better at this. It doesn't say one or the other can't do that thing. It's just statistically this worked that way. I think so many times people take things to the extreme, and I bet you it's going to go back the other way. Like, again, I'm all for people being able to do what they want to do, don't care. But if you take anything to the extreme, now you're going to have that reverse event come back. Now you're
Mhm.
going to have that reverse pull or whatever term you need to do with it. And I think so many times people just get caught up in their way is right instead of being able to see someone else's thoughts or opinion, just going back to what we talked about earlier today. And I think the key for me with success in business is that I am always listening first. As a sales professional, I listen before I speak. I before I ask questions or try and present, I don't just start presenting to them. I ask about who they are, what they want to do, because now I can actually connect with the person. I think if we took time to just pause and listen,
Mhm.
we'd be a lot better.
It's the same thing with personal branding because when I'm talking to a client, I'm asking them why are they building their personal brand? Why is it something you want to do? And any moment I don't ask these questions are the times that I don't get the close because I'm not putting the client's needs first. And coming from that place of let me sell you versus let me help you is important. And that's a lesson that I've learned over the past year. But a person will build their personal brand to make money, for vanity, or to drive awareness to a cause. And those are the three major driving forces. Because thinking about building your personal brand and positioning yourself, you're going to want to help grow your business and use that as an organic tool to drive people towards whatever you're associated with. Just like if I need a sales trainer, I'm automatically going to choose whatever company you're working with because of you. And that right there is an example of a successful personal brand and that degree of human connection because who do people do business with? This isn't new. People who they
Like, know, and trust.
exactly, right? And I know every single person when I stopped talking had that in their brain, but
Yep.
like that cliche has power, but that is effectively why you build your personal brand so everybody knows, likes, and trusts you. Or if they don't like you per se, they still know and trust you, right? Because I can trust somebody and not like them. It's like that, it's true. And having that control and having that connection and community and people that know you, you now have leverage, and that leverage can be directed. Or from a vanity standpoint, entertainers usually become famous because they want to, because it's vain. And I'm not here to dispute the is that good or is that bad or is that contributing to the downfall of man? Like I'm not here for that conversation. And then also to drive awareness to a cause. And it's like once you understand those things, you can start taking action steps and reverse engineering where it is you want to be, either by revenue or by follower count or by network or by awareness, and taking the steps to get there. So if you need to make, for example, 100 podcast interviews in a year, well, I know that I should have done at the beginning of the year 8 podcast interviews per month in order to hit that goal, and then 2 more months that have 10. I fell behind launching MCG. So now I know that, oh no, July, I need to do 20 interviews and I need to do 15 every month moving forward, right? But again, reverse engineering and then putting the action plan in place. Just like if you want to get 100 followers, you send out 100 messages and you build 100 relationships. Like that's how you build the foundation that you can start getting consistent results on.
Success again is boring. It's doing those right things that people. The reason why people like you and I win is simply this: we don't quit. We just keep moving forward. If we might fail at something, we might not learn it or might not hit it at that first target, but we just keep going forward. And I think if someone could take that one aspect and all, but before that, now I'm going to want you to give us a couple closing thoughts. But I know people are like, where can I find Isaac? So give us where we can find you, and then we're going to kind of land the plane.
I think the easiest thing is to go to Google and search up Isaac Mashman, and you'll be able to find my website, be able to find all of my social media handles. It's at Isaac Mashman across the board. And that would be a really good starting point to kind of see maybe where you need to be a couple years from now. And there's a point that I'm working towards too. So like this is not the end all be all, but 5 years ago I had none of this. And I believe that more people really need to lean in and understand that no, it is in fact possible. This isn't some fairy tale, but there is a pursuit of happiness kind of thing. You can go from having nothing to building it up and having no personal brand that is strong and established to being well known. So run a quick Google search, follow me on the platform of your choice, or follow me on all of them for that matter. Love to connect with everyone.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So before I let you go, we've talked about a wide variety of stuff because on my show,
Yeah.
that's what we do. I don't just talk about one thing because that bores me. Is there anything we missed that you want to leave our listeners with on branding, life, pursuit, anything you want to go?
Damn it, man. I've been asked this 4 times in the past 4 days, and I've been stumped every single time. This is like the greatest question that people can ask that can stump any guest. The one thing that I would say is that, man, I'm thinking about how I could tie this in directly when it comes to sales, that it is a gift to be in a position where somebody trusts you enough, where you do not necessarily even know who they are, but they automatically trust you. It is a gift, it is a privilege. It is something that should be treated as such. And that even though that action threshold might be lowered, that they would automatically throw money at you, right? Like I would throw money at Joe. Joe would probably throw money at me if he needs help. That is a privilege that you should not ever take advantage of. Take advantage of it in the sense of appreciating it, but not take advantage of the person. And so that is what I would say. So if you land those features, if you do those interviews, if you do those relationships, if you are that public figure, appreciate that privilege and treat it as such, and treat it as just like I would never cut down a red oak tree or a redwood tree. I would never cut one down because I appreciate how long it's been there. But at the same point, somebody could come in with a chainsaw and cut it down in an hour.
I love that. Isaac, thank you for being on the show. And for all of you, I'm going to leave you with this. Go take action to whatever dream it is that you have, because if you start now, you get a lot closer than if you wait, think, read, or listen about it. Till next time, go be legendary, and we'll talk soon.